Welcome to another episode of the Savage Angel podcast. I'm Angela Giles, the host, and I'm so excited. I've got Deborah Daniel here, and I'm going to say this. She is absolutely phenomenal. I've known her for a while, and I cannot wait for you to meet her, learn about what she does, her book that she's writing, chapters she's written in another book. It's so exciting. All right, Deborah, tell us all about you.
Awesome. Well, so we have known each other for a little while, Angela, but not as long as I've been doing this entrepreneurial journey. I mean, literally, I've been doing this for 3 decades. I'm going to stop saying that because I don't want people to really know how old I am. But I have been in the business, money space for really 30 years.
Yeah.
And one thing that I do know is that women are not looking at this enough. That's why I had the opportunity to join in on this book, Women of Wealth. Of course, I was like, this is me. I need to be in on this because I do think I have a very strong opinion about women, their knowledge about money, what they do differently with money than men do. And I thought this book really hit the nail on the head because I mean, we're talking
100%.
about, I'm not a super religious person. So at first I was like, but I mean, the stories and the, lessons, within the Bible and with many, many religions, all kind of do come down to our life and the way that we live our life. And the Proverbs 31, which this book was built on, is really a lot about money and entrepreneurship, really, if you look at it. And so I wrote my chapter in the book about the entrepreneurial journey, basically. It's based on the bigger book that I have coming out this summer called Women's Wealth Secrets, which is a much broader topic of women and money. But this particular chapter I wrote about how when you are in control with your inflow, right, which is entrepreneurship, which is, I think I called it She Builds the Field. I've forgotten my exact title, but it's about she gathers the field or gathers the harvest. But basically, when you're in charge of the inflow, I mean, I love the word currency. It's like, that's a juicy word that most people don't talk about, but really and truly, I mean, our forefathers here in America called it the comptroller of the currency. Money is supposed to flow. It's not supposed to like sit there. It's supposed to go from me buying something that now I've spent money with you. And then people that buy from you can now spend money again, and it recycles over and over and over again. Well, that's when you're in control of the flow. I often use the example of why I love entrepreneurship is because like when something came up, my daughter's just graduated from college. So this is an older story that I've been using for a while.
Yeah,
But back when she was in high school or maybe middle school and needed braces, I was like, okay, I got to come up with $5,000. You don't go to your boss and say, hey, give me $5,000 or like go back to your cube and do your work. But as an entrepreneur, we just say, okay, I have goods and services to sell. Who needs something that I have right now? And then you get on the phone and start dialing for dollars or send out an email or go do a speaking engagement or do something that generates that revenue. That's the flow that entrepreneurship gives us. So then once you have the money that's coming in, then you really got to, I feel like people in general, but especially women, don't have enough information about what to do with that money once they've gotten it. There's so much fear, shame, lack of confidence, confusion about money. It's kind of crazy. I talk about a lot. I have an MBA. Those are some of my degrees behind me.
You're smart.
But the thing is, it's not all book smart that really gets you to the wealth, I think that that's important in certain circumstances, but all of us, whether you're, in grammar school, high school, college educated, master's degree, there are people with PhDs that are smarter than me. You have to know about how money works, really. And it's
100%.
not something that's really taught to us. And I feel like I just had this conversation with a client earlier today that's very appropriate for this conversation. They're about my age, getting close, kind of the pre-retirement, about to be retirement age. And there really is a generational shift kind of going on in their scenario. She and her husband were both the first people in their family to graduate from college. I'm the first person. My dad almost finished his degree, but he didn't quite. So people don't realize that everybody didn't have a degree, 7 years ago or whatever, and not that you have to have a degree to make money. I think now there's a lot of opportunities to do that without that, but still you've got to understand the mechanics of money. But most of us got our financial education from our parents who did not have the knowledge to pass down to us. So we're kind of all wandering around a little bit confused. I have an MBA in finance. I did not learn most of this personal finance information from those classes. I learned about corporate bonds and
Right.
options and derivatives and all this kind of crazy stuff that 99% of us really don't need to know. But as far as how do you save, how do you invest, how does compound interest work, we're not told that.
No,
It's a problem.
it
It's a
really is
definite
a
problem.
problem. And even, let's say as an entrepreneur, you make a ton of money as a woman. Where do you put that money to keep building wealth, right? Like women, a lot of women don't know. Like I know real estate's a great place, but there's so many other financial vehicles people don't know.
Exactly. Well, I kind of call it the flow of money. So currency is important because this is cycling, but I think there's a money flow. You make more, you keep more, and then you grow what you kept. And I think there's a big gap, and not just because I'm a CPA and do a lot of taxes. People are missing the boat on the biggest drain of their life. I mean, if most people were to look at it, they're especially higher income people, and I mean higher income is relative, but anyone making, two incomes here in Atlanta, a lot of people are making 250, 300,
Right.
5. It takes that much almost to live here, right?
No.
But if you look at it, people are like always worried about interest rates on their mortgage and stuff, but people are paying more in taxes than they are in their mortgage, and they're not paying any attention in how to mitigate that, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, for the W-2 people, there's not a whole lot they can do, right? But that's another reason why I love the entrepreneurial journey, because not only can we control the money that's coming in, we can call people, we can sell. There's a million different ways that we can sell. We could create passive income. We can create, programs. We can sell a book or whatever.
Yeah.
We have the inflow, but we also have a little bit more flexibility on the tax side of it. I wouldn't say that's the only place people are leaking money in their business, but it's the biggest one. So I'm not the kind of financial, guru that says, okay, eat ramen noodles, cancel your Netflix, never go to the movies. You're not going to build wealth by cutting those little pennies out. I mean, you might have a little bit better budget that month, but to me, why not increase the inflow and then you can have whatever you want. I
Right.
mean, I do feel like that's what stops people a lot of the time from starting the wealth journey is because they don't really feel like, okay, I'm not ready yet. Well, honestly, the first minute you make money is the first time you should start saving some, right? I mean,
What do
and if you
you
can't do that, then today is the next second best time.
Yeah, no, and that's what I was gonna bring up, like, women that are, like, pre-retirement age that haven't saved enough money for retirement. They don't even know what to do. Like, maybe they're in their late 40s, early 50s. How do you help them, like, increase inflow, I guess? Or
That's true. But the thing is, it used to be the old saying was, oh, there's a number. What number do you need to retire? I don't think there's a number. I think there is assets, which is a balance sheet kind of thing. But then there's also your income statement, your cash flow. If you've got passive income or some kind of income some kind of income that's coming in, that's what I care about. I need X to live every year. So how do I create that X? Well, either maybe I was a good steward and I saved from the very beginning and I have a big nest egg that can kick me off that income, or like I was talking to someone recently that is, you know, she and her husband are in their early 60s and they have really not saved very much. What are your options? You're not going to be able to save a big enough nest egg to create a cash flow from that nest egg. You've got to find a revenue stream. And there are so many ways to do that. I mean, now with the digital world, I mean, your knowledge, your particular experience in this world is something that somebody else could need. And it's so easy to get it out there and market it. So, some kind of a digital project, obviously rental property is, passive income. There's a lot of ways, but I think you have to focus on what I've saved, what is it going to generate for me, and or what can I do that keeps bringing money in? Obviously,
well,
I don't want to tell anybody to work till they're 95, but you
no,
need to do
no.
something that isn't working that brings in money. And there's a lot of things that do that.
Well, Deborah, I think you made a great point because I have, like, a million Instagram accounts and TikToks for different businesses I have, and one of them is, like, for digital marketing, and I will tell you, I see women in there in their late 50s, early 60s talking about, "Hey, I didn't have money to retire, and now I have a digital product and I sell it." And they're making, like, 10 to $70,000 a month doing it.
Exactly. Well, and now because of our influencer kind of economy, I mean, it's so easy to become an Amazon affiliate and have
True.
links and, curate, something that you like. Again, there's a lot of other people that are like you. So if you like XYZ, Amazon capsule or, something that's on Amazon, you get out there, and share that information. When in history have we been able to put a link we basically have our own store without even realizing we have our own store
Right.
because we're able to promote other people's products. So I don't think anybody is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be on, eating breadcrumbs and, you know, ramen noodles for the rest of my life because I didn't save enough."
Well, I totally agree with you. I think that's so important that we address it. And I think too, like, do you have conversations with women a lot that like is the main thing they come to and they're trying to figure out their wealth flow, their retirement?
100%. I do deal with a lot of couples just
Yeah.
because, I'm in an area that it mostly is two-income families, but I do have a heart for women and single women. I do have a lot, and unfortunately, it's still the case that most women do live a little bit longer than their husbands. So even the ones that were in, 20, 30, 40-year marriages, I'm seeing pretty much every year men passing away in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and the woman is left, unfortunately, totally clueless of what's going on with what's going on with their money. So
Yeah.
that's one of the first things I try to talk to people about, even when I'm talking with couples, is like, you cannot abdicate the authority of what's going on with your money. You have to understand what's going on. And I think especially now, just because we're the kind of the money people, my husband and I have been kind of the executors for grandparents, parents, and those kind of things because we're the money people in the family. And you really have to, one, have a grip for yourself, but you're doing your heirs a big disservice if you're not organized and know what's going on. Back in the day, when one of the first people we took care of, my grandparents, if you just waited, a month, a quarter, you would get all those statements kind of mailed to you. Now everything is digital. If you don't know what's going on, there's money floating around out there that you don't even know about. And so
Well,
we kind of get clients ourselves. We have one too. We get clients to create a spreadsheet, a list, a something with all your logins, all your passwords, who's the person to call if something happens. I'm actually honored to be the person that a lot of my clients have on their list. They brought in their adult children and said, "Look, when something happens, Deborah knows about my taxes. She knows what's going on. Call her, at least as a starting point." And you've got to have that knowledge of, one, where you are, which most people are confused and don't even know that, and then where are you trying to get to. Again, I had a conversation. This is kind of funny because I was just talking to somebody about this today, and they have a very big goal of leaving money to their two daughters. And that desire, what you want to do with your money, makes a big difference of how you build for that, right? I have other clients who are like, "Screw my kids. I want to make sure I have enough to live. And, if I die with zero, I'm okay." And that depends on what your strategy is if you're trying to do that, right?
right,
If you want to leave a legacy to charity or to your kids or your grandkids or whatever, then it becomes even more important to
right.
understand, that this kind of money is taxed differently. So it'll be better for my kids if I do this. This costs me more. Knowing the differences in what you're paying, especially in retirement, is so huge because there's four different kinds of income. There's taxable, there's tax deferred, there's tax now, and there's never taxed, kind of thing. So how do you get yourself into those right buckets so that you're, one, preserving money for yourself, especially if you don't have a big enough nest egg. For sure, you've got to be efficient with how it's coming out, and then leaving it to your heirs because it's really expensive to leave money to your kids in the wrong form.
That's so true. It's so interesting you're talking about women. Well, our best friend that we had, my husband and I, lived with us, and he died like 5 weeks ago. My child found him outside in the backyard. We were gone for the weekend, and I was literally dealing with the funeral home and how all the process worked and paperwork and stuff. And I'm like, I've got some of it, but I don't have all of it. Like, how do I do all these things, right? Because
Right.
he didn't have any next of kin and all the stuff you have to do and the money and, like, it's a lot.
It really is. So there's so much more to it than just, okay, let me get a job and make more money. And I did a video one time about kind of scam of not scam, but how we've kind of been taught, in the old days, get the degree, get the job, get the retirement account, get the gold watch when you retire. That's really not the way to do it these days. I mean, it's changed. That is a model that isn't really working out for most people. I remember, well, of course, I've had a business for 34 years. I've had, I don't know, let's just say at least 50 employees over all that time. Not at the same time, thank God. But it's, it's really a disservice for us to expect people to do that whole 40 years journey. I mean, I remember when I was first starting noticing it, maybe it's been a while, but 15, 20 years, back when when I got out of college, if I looked at a resume of somebody that had been out of college for 4 or 5 years and they had 4 or 5 jobs, I'd be like, what's wrong with this person? They can't keep a job. But these younger people are jumping from job to job. As soon as they get the experience they need, they move on to the next opportunity. And it makes sense for them economically. But you don't build a retirement jumping from company to company, right? So if
No,
we're planning on that being our only exit strategy, that doesn't meet with what the current economics are.
no, 100%. You're 100% correct on that. I love everything you're talking about. I have a question
Sure, sure.
for you. Going back to the book that you were part of, Limited Wealth. How did you find that experience? Because as everybody may or may not know, I am one of the publishers of that book along with my best friend Kate Mitchell, Rosen Everyday Woman Publishing. I'd love to know your experience, like going through the
I thought it was, I mean, I've been in a couple of compilation books, and I want to tell you, I actually, when I was first approached about it from my very dear friend Hollywoods Gray, who was the one that spearheaded this book, I was like, compilations are really just a vanity project. I mean, really, what is the through line, and what is really the purpose of doing it, especially because I was already working on my own book. And I'd been in several of these before, and it just felt like a kind of a hassle every time. And they're like, but it was so smooth, I thought. I mean, having been, this is probably my fifth book that I
book.
had a
Yeah,
chapter in, because people like to hear what I say. But anyway,
I do actually.
so it was definitely the smoothest experience that I had had. It was super great. I mean, never before have I been in one that they did the bestseller campaign so smoothly. I'm not even sure the other ones I did even tried the bestseller campaign. They
Wow.
really were like, basically, here's a book, sell it to your friends. You got 1,000 clients, just sell it to them. Okay,
Well,
whatever.
we're totally different than that. Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
about getting you to best selling.
Well,
Yeah.
and didn't we bestseller in 3 categories that
Yes.
first day? I
Yeah.
mean, and stayed at new release for a while, right? Best new
Yes.
release?
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
But you know
it
what's
is.
so fun, Deborah, from our perspective, I think we've helped over 400 women now in all our anthologies, 14 or 15 of them, I lose track. They've all become best-selling authors, and that's huge because our mission is to help 10,000 women share their voice, so 10,000 authors. So we're
Right.
we're starting there. We're getting there, little by
Right.
little.
Well, exactly. And the thing is, and I think people, especially women, they have a little bit of a competitive like nature or
Right.
whatever, especially in business, I think. I think when one woman succeeds, it helps all of us, right? And
I
having
agree.
more voices out there, even if somebody's talking about taxes or talking about money or talking about wealth, their experience is different than mine. Their human capital, what they've lived through is different. So the perspective is very different. I mean, I can explain compound interest. I mean, even, Albert Einstein says the greatest, power on earth is compound interest. Those who
Right.
understand it benefit, those who don't. I mean, that's a kind of a misquote, but it's something like that. But I mean, here he was, the theory of relativity, and he's saying compound interest is the coolest thing that ever lived on earth, right? But if I explain it, it's going to be totally different than if somebody else that's an expert in my area
Right.
explains it.
Right.
But it's still the same good knowledge. But sometimes it's like I go to these same conferences year after year. I love them. I go for more of the community than I actually do the content. But even if the content's fairly similar, you hear it at a different time and you're in a different place, and it was the same words, but it means something different to you. So
Right.
when you're helping people get their words out, I think that's really cool. And I mean, I'm just really excited myself to finally be doing an individual book that I've been wanting to do for a while.
I'm so
Um
happy for you.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's something that I've been working on kind of in the background. I mean, I've been speaking about it for a long time, but the book's it's called Women's Wealth Secrets, and it feels like it's a secret. to most people about money, right? And how it works and how to manage it and how for you to be not reacting to it, but to be intentional about it. And it's not like a textbooky kind of book like compound. I mean, it has good stuff in it, compound interest and difference between saving and investing and good debt versus bad debt and some really juicy stuff. But it also talks a little bit about the mindset because it's basically separated into three mindset, skill set, and tool set. Because the reality is you need all three of those parts.
Yeah.
Because having the totally like, I love abundance, I am accept abundance, but you don't have any of the skills or any of the tools to make that work. That's
Right.
kind of like woo. I mean, I'm a numbers person, but I love the woo woo when it makes sense. And it really does go hand in hand
It
because
does.
people that have all the skills and the right tools, if they don't have the right attitude. Again, another I'm talking about these people that I talked to this morning. I was talking to them and I think it's something too. There's a life cycle for money, but there's also a life cycle of your attitude about money. I
Right.
mean, like as a person who's, my husband wants to retire. I mean, we can retire, but I just love doing this so much. I don't see myself retiring anytime soon. But you have to shift from that builder standpoint in the early part of your career. Save, 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 save. And then you get to a certain point where hey, I kind of have a lot. I want to preserve it. So you're a little bit more risk averse because now I have a big pile of money. Before I could risk it because it wasn't that much. But then you have to get into the, okay, now it's okay to start spending, right? And that I see so often with clients that have built up all this money. They've been good stewards, they've done the right thing, they've set it and forget it and let those accounts grow. But then when it's time to actually start spending, for vacations or for the beach house or for the whatever, it's very hard to then change your mindset. It's okay to spend this money, especially coupled with most people are doing it when all of a sudden their revenue stream, their job, their business, they sold their business. So they may have a big lump of money. They're like, oh,
Right.
wait a minute, I'm used to all this money coming in. So there's so much psychology to money that people don't forget about. And I did read a lot of the other chapters in the book. I haven't read the whole thing yet because I got a lot of projects going on. But I saw that as a consistent theme throughout the book is the philosophy of money, of how people think about it and how it tempered their journey, how it affected their journey in life based on their mentality. I mean, I talk in the book a little bit about I think you are a product of your family and your background. Now that doesn't mean you can't change, but I tell the story in there. My grandparents were born in 1920, and both of them were born in 1920. They lived in the Depression. People that lived in the Depression have a very different attitude about money than somebody like us who's lived through the tech bubble and the 2008. I mean, we've had different experiences, but I do think growing up in a family that had this very much save and, don't use credit too
Right.
much and don't get yourself into trouble with credit, that tempers how you're going to act the whole rest of your life. And so I think we have to be cognizant because our kids are watching us. Even if they're not listening to us, they are watching the things that we're doing. And so we have to be really careful about the messages that we're giving them, right? And it's hard today in a very, you know, you know, instant
I
gratification
know.
world that we're living in, keep up with the Joneses. We live in a fairly affluent, suburb of Atlanta and, everybody's driving the expensive cars. I mean, you drive by our high schools and there's Mercedes and, BMWs and Audis and Jaguars parked in the high school. So, something's wrong here. But not everybody can have that immediately. And I mean, and expecting that they would is kinda crazy. It's funny, when I first started speaking, I wasn't a speaker for a long time until I got involved with the, women's group, and I actually was leading a group, and I was booking other speakers. I'm like, "Wait a minute, I can do that." And so I started speaking myself. But one of the first topics I was talking about was because my children were middle school or something like that, and I just noticed that they were not understanding about money, even though I'm an expert kind of on it, and I live the thing. I started doing financial literacy for teens. And
Oh,
then
wow.
I was telling my clients about it and they're like, "Hey, that sounds like something." I mean, because again, we were not taught ourselves. So these 30, 40, 50-year-olds were like, "Hey, I want to come to that class too." And so because people really need this information and it's crazy that they don't ask for it more. But
Well,
it is something that's a little bit of shame if you don't understand it. You think,
I
"Well, everybody else knows this,"
exactly. I totally agree with you, Deborah, and I'm so grateful you came on here and talked to us. You're just so amazing. So what we're gonna do is we'll put all of your information below this interview so people can reach out to you. What I would love to do is, can you share like one golden gem before we sign off on the end of this episode?
Sure. Oh, I have so many, but I would say believe in the power of time. Time is your friend when it comes to money, right? So don't wait for the perfect, don't wait to win the lottery or when this happens, when I get a bonus, I'll start saving, or when little amounts over time make so much difference, right? So say you're even just a starting out new person and you just got your first job, just put that $25 a paycheck away. Then when you get a raise, okay, now I'm going to put $50. Now I'm going to put $100 because you don't realize how much value time helps you, and it can hurt you. It goes back to your thing about what if you're talking to these women 56 years old, they don't have any money saved. They don't have enough time, but you always have enough time if you start early, even
Right.
at small amounts.
I totally agree with that. Well, Deborah, this has been absolutely amazing. I am so grateful that I have the opportunity to interview you, and I can't wait for your book. That's going to be amazing too. You're very knowledgeable, so I think a lot of women will want to read that. So, thank
Awesome.
you.
Glad to be here.
Mwah.